Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. So the Friday the 13th series is pretty awesome, right? Except for a few sequels. And the Nightmare on Elm Street series is also awesome, except for a few sequels. So I wonder what will happen if we put the two together. We get this! Since 1993, the year that the abomination that is Jason Goes to Hell was made, they have been trying to get a crossover going between Freddy and Jason, and 10 years later we finally got one. Maybe it took so long because that sucked so much, but I'll save that nightmare for another time. So under the directing capabilities of Ronnie Yu, let's see how these two iconic killers get on. The movie starts with a quick synopsis of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, which is narrated by Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. They summarise that Freddy Krueger was a child killer. No, I know what you're thinking, but not until the remake came about did they actually say he molested children. In the original, he was just a child killer. Which, to be fair, is still pretty bad. But come on, he's a bad guy. Anyway, they go on to say that he didn't get sent to prison after he was found out because someone screwed up in court. So the parents of Springwood took matters into their own hands. They firebombed his house and he burnt to death. But after he died, he came back as an entity that could invade your dreams and kill you in them, provided you were afraid enough. But as the movie series went on, people forgot about him, meaning no one was afraid of him anymore.
I can come back if nobody remembers me! I can come back if nobody's afraid!
Maybe you're wondering how he got those powers when he died. Well, it was explained in one of the sequels, but it was pretty damn stupid, so I'm gonna save that one for another time. So because Freddy was forgotten, he had to search the realms of hell.
But I found someone.
Jason Voorhees, the killer from the Friday the 13th series, who had been sent to hell in Jason Goes to Hell. Oh, sorry, spoilers! But it kind of is in the title. Freddy invades Jason's little slice of hell and takes on the form of his dead mother and tells him to go to Elm Street. Let me explain to those of you that aren't familiar with Jason Voorhees. He pretty much worships his mother and will do whatever she tells him to do. And yes, I know, he knows she is dead, but let's just say he's not too smart either. Okay, in Jason Goes to Hell, they sent him to hell because he kept coming back to life in his zombified state. So hell was their way of making sure Jason stayed dead, but all Freddy had to do was say get up, and then he did. Was a motivational speech all he needed? So Jason arrives at Elm Street, I don't know how, maybe he had a road map handy, and we meet a bunch of teenagers, which, let's face it, no one cares about. But just to get it out of the way, this is one of our main characters, Laurie Campbell, played by Monica Keena. And this is her best friend, Kia, played by Kelly Rowland. And as for the rest of them, well, they don't really live long enough for me to justify an introduction.
Oh, you bitch! I'm totally gonna gut you later.
They are talking about how Laurie hasn't been moving on since the death of her mother, and that she needs to meet someone. But she keeps whining about her long-lost high school boyfriend, Will, played by Jason Ritter, who will show up later. But never mind about any of that. That guy's a douchebag and he is having sex with his girlfriend. You know what to do, Jason. Attaboy, Jason. The guy's girlfriend finds the body and they all run out of the house screaming. Now I have to admit I do like this one scene.
You kids need some assistance?
It almost distracted me from the convenience of the cop car that happened to be driving past at that exact moment. The cops clear out the body and we hear one of them saying...
It's gotta be Freddy Krueger. Hey.
Laurie overhears the cop saying Freddy's name, so when she is at the police station she starts to think who could Freddy Krueger be? Which means because she is thinking about him, it gives Freddy the strength to invade her dream. Not strong enough to kill her, but strong enough to spread some fear. The movie decides it's been too long without a death, so this happens. Then we cut to Western Hills Psychiatric Hospital where we find Laurie's long-lost ex-boyfriend. Okay, I'm just going to save us a lot of time here and say everyone at Western Hills is a former victim of Freddy Krueger whether they knew it or not, and now they all have to take the drug Hypnosil to suppress their dreams. When Will sees the news, he finds out there was a death at Laurie's house. He has to know what is going on and whether she is okay, so he takes his friend with him and they break out by pickpocketing one of the guards. The next day in school, Will's friend, who seems to know quite a bit about Freddy, decides the best way to help her and the people of Springwood out is to spread as much fear as possible.
He comes for you. In your dreams. You're lucky to be alive. You want some free advice? Coffee. Make friends with it. Mark!
Good thinking! Real smart! You just made the situation like 1,000,000 times worse! Which he then kicks himself for when he discovers that the town's plan was to stop Freddy by making people forget. I'm guessing we're forgetting all the weirdness that was Elm Street in Part 6. Well, the only thing I have to say about that is... good idea. So Will wants to talk to Laurie properly since she fainted when she saw him at school, but Mike wants to get the hell out of there, so they make a deal. Tomorrow they leave. But we all know one of them is going to be dead by then, and considering I'm putting much more emphasis on one than the other, you probably have a shrewd idea as to which one will die. During the obligatory rave, the town's resident nerd stands up to Kia, so she decides she likes him.
You tear me down to make yourself feel better because you really hate yourself, which is kind of pathetic when you actually stop and think about it, assuming, of course, you can think, with all that makeup weighing down your head.
This isn't really going anywhere, I just want an excuse to do this. Nerd power! Will makes his way over to Laurie and explains that he was in a psychiatric hospital all of these years, blah blah blah. He saw her mother get killed by her father, you know, the usual stuff. Then we cut to a passed out girl. No, I do not care to see what he is about to do next. And thankfully, the movie skips over the raver's rapey intentions, and we see her running around in her nightmare, as Freddy plays cat and mouse, and just when he has her trapped...
Dude, you killed Steeler!
Jason then proceeds to slaughter many people at the rave until characters with names run away. Laurie confronts her father about how her mother really died. And you know what? None of this adds up to anything. He didn't kill his wife, Freddy did, and since then all he has done was try to stop Freddy ever coming back. And yeah, okay, if it was done right, it would feel like it built up to something, but it didn't, because the movie already told the audience what he was doing at the start of the movie. All it was a shock to the character, not to the audience, so it doesn't carry the same weight. And as well as that, he doesn't even appear in the movie again. It's not like he gets killed, he just doesn't show up again. Well, okay, for 2 dream sequences maybe, but they don't count. It's kind of like the sheriff, he keeps saying we will keep Freddy contained, but he isn't in the movie long enough to do anything. I honestly think they didn't care about the characters in this movie. They just wanted padding to fill in the time between decapitations. She runs out of the house and goes back to Will, where they head to Mark to try and figure out what to do next. But naturally, the expert on Freddy Krueger has fallen asleep, so Freddy uses him to send a message. This cop digs into the reports of the hockey mask killer and thinks it's a copycat killer of Jason Voorhees. When his boss tells him to shut the hell up, he tracks down the kids who have gathered to work out what to do next. Well, I guess if you can't work with your fellow cops, work with some unqualified panicky teenagers. Laurie drifts off to sleep where she has a brief encounter with Freddy, but she wakes up and manages to pull his ear off in the process and bring it into the real world. They realise that the drug Will was taking in Western Hills was used for dream suppression, so they head over there to get some. And naturally Jason follows them and kills the one security guard this psychiatric hospital has. They go in search of the hypnosil, but one guy decides getting stoned is a good idea. The only thing that's missing here is a... Because he was smart enough to get stoned, he gets possessed by bad CGI. Ew. Now with Freddy in the piloting seat, he gets rid of the drugs. Then Jason attacks, fries the cop, and Freddy has an idea.
Let me handle this, bitch.
Freddy uses a tranquilizer on Jason and sends him to Dreamland, where he properly introduces himself.
It's time to put this bad dog to sleep.
Okay, this is it. 2 of the biggest horror icons of the past 20 years come face to face in an epic, gory, and gruesomely awesome battle. Seriously? You know, I feel the need right now to just say, I did not add that sound effect in. That was really there. Okay, I knew this fight was going to be a little one-sided in the dream world, but really? And yes, okay, this was just a small clip of the fight, but the rest of it is just Freddy toying with Jason. As the most one-sided fight in the history of one-sidedness continues, Freddy discovers something about Jason. He is really Michael Myers in a mask. Okay, no, but that'd be interesting.
Come on! Come on!
Oh. So you are afraid of something after all, huh?
Seriously? Jason Voorhees is afraid of water? Okay, I know he drowned as a kid, but come on! He waded through water to get to his victims in several movies before this. In fact, he pretty much lived underwater between several movies, and he still happily went in the water to get to his victims. And in Jason Takes Manhattan, he swam from a boat to New York to get to his prey. While Freddy toys with him some more by taking Jason back to his original death as a child, we see that Will and his friends have Jason tied up and are driving him back to Crystal Lake, his old stomping ground, in the hopes that Laurie can go to sleep, grab Freddy and wake up, thus bringing him back into the real world. so Jason can kill him. Then while he does that, they can run off back to Springwood, and hopefully Jason won't follow them since he is already back home. After they sedate Laurie, Freddy actually starts killing Jason in the dream world by drowning him, which means one of them has to give him mouth to mouth. But Jason thinks, "Oh hell no!" and wakes up. But as luck would have it, they had already arrived at Crystal Lake. Freddy blames Jason waking up on Laurie, even though she actually didn't do anything to wake him up. But I think it was because someone was about to give Jason mouth to mouth. Jason has intimacy issues. Seriously, don't laugh at it. Women throw themselves at that face all the time. He hates it. It scares him. Killing is his form of blushing, so don't laugh at it. Laurie grabs Freddy and tries to wake up at the sound of the alarm clock, but she doesn't. Maybe it only worked last time because she had just dozed off, but this time she was actually sedated. I don't think they thought this plan through very well. As Will carries the sleeping Laurie into one of the cabins at Crystal Lake, Freddy is taunting Laurie over the fact that he killed her mother, but Jason then attacks and a fire breaks out. The nerd goes on the offensive and gets an injury that will kill him later, but then Laurie's hand gets burnt and she wakes up and brings Freddy with her, because coincidence struck again and she happened to be holding on to him. And as it turns out, this is the moment we were really waiting for. Two of the biggest horror icons of the past 20 years come face to face in an epic, gory, gruesomely awesome battle. Again, except this time it's actually epically gory. But just before we get to that, it's point out the inconsistency time! When the nerd was thrown into that wall, he was stabbed by a shelving bracket. But when Freddy was thrown against the exact same wall, he wasn't. I think we all know where the real evil is here. The shelving bracket. And now all we have to do to get to the real gory stuff is... oh yeah, Kia dies. We have gore! Are realistic, but I like it. The gore! That was one of the goriest fights between two giant horror icons I have ever seen. But unfortunately, we have to go back to the plot. I know, we just want to see those two fight forever, but we have to. Laurie and Will decided to stay to make sure Freddy dies. They sprayed the dock with oil and set it alight. In the explosion, both Freddy and Jason are blown into the water, as Laurie and Will think everything is going to be okay. Freddy walks up to them, armless, but he has Jason's machete with him. He is about to kill them, but Jason plunges Freddy's severed arm through him, and then he falls back into the water and Laurie finishes Freddy off. So now Laurie and Will are safe. They can go live happily ever after, except for the fact that all their friends are dead. Yeah, I'm a killjoy like that. But the movie can't end yet. It hasn't thrown sequel bait at us. Ah, there we go. So, Freddy vs. Jason, what can I say? It managed to merge two of the biggest slasher icons of all time together in one movie. Yeah, sure, the plot was convoluted and silly, but a plot that could merge them two together would have to be. So I think they did a fairly good job at it. Okay, sure, aside from Freddy and Jason, everyone else is forgettable and bland, which is a reoccurring theme in the Friday the 13th movies. But in the Nightmare on Elm Street films, I remember it having much stronger characters. Now let's talk about the scoreboard. I don't usually fixate on how many deaths there are in a horror film, but since this is a crossover, I'm going to this time. Let's see, Jason killed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm going to stop counting there. I think you get the point. Jason killed a ton of people in this movie. But how many did Freddy kill? 1? Freddy Krueger killed only one of them? Out of all the people that died in this entire movie, Freddy Krueger, the Springwood slasher, killed only one of them? Who came up with that idea? It's ridiculous, unthinkable, insane, and just downright stupid. But he did look cool. In fact, visually, this movie is pretty damn awesome. It captures Jason Voorhees perfectly and Freddy Krueger brilliantly. When you watch Jason do his thing, it feels like a Friday the 13th movie. But when you watch Freddy do his thing, it feels like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So when it comes to the atmosphere of this movie, it did a great job. And as usual, Robert Englund turned in a great performance as Freddy Krueger, and Ken Kirzinger fit into the role of the zombified Jason Voorhees very well, although I do still prefer Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees. So to sum up, the movie has bland characters except for the two villains, and inconsistencies with certain characters, but that's just water under the bridge, right? And of course, the battle it was all about. Freddy versus Jason, toe-to-toe. It may not have been scary, in fact hilariously over the top and full of slapstick, but whatever, it was just so damn awesome. See you next time.